Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Dark Roast. I'm Donna Stroll, and I'm here with the always lovely and talented Rose Short. And today's topic is going to be a little different. It's about geo-targeting your affiliate offers, basically winning local and not just global like we normally talk about. I will say right now that for whatever reason, my camera decided literally the second that we were going live to get all wiggity woggity. So hopefully we don't have the same problem we had last week.
Fingers crossed, but we'll see. We also had a power outage not too long ago, so hopefully the power stays on.
Adventure time.
It is spooky season. Maybe the ghosts are just waking up.
There you go. Ghosts in the machine. I did get a new machine, and apparently my camera's having a little issue with that. All right. So today we're going to talk about sort of evacuating the spray and pray kind of marketing that we all do, where we try to make a big net and catch what we can. Because just tossing out your random offers, it seems like a good idea, right? You're trying to reach as many people as you can, but there's an alternative to that, and that is really trying to not just niche down what you're selling, but who you're selling to. And your local area is a great way to do that.
Yeah, kind of in terms of like, think of your Mary Kay saleswoman or your Melaleuca representative or your Avon representative, right, who would come to your door 20, 30 years ago. Kind of similar. But you have the ability of course, the internet and reaching greater affiliate programs now. But if you partner that with being a face in the community and networking and getting it out there, it can be a super, super fabulous combination.
Yeah, and you don't have to knock on doors anymore because you can literally do it through online groups, forum groups, your local.
Nextdoor.
Yeah. It's actually really interesting in a way how the internet, even though it allows us a much broader reach, can also help us really localize what we're doing. Because you'll look at TikTok, you can say where you're from, right? Mm-hmm. And you can put that in there. You can do that pretty much with, I think, almost all of the social medias, so that you're really narrowing it down. There's different groups within those, especially like with Facebook. There are groups for your local community or your local area. So these are all ways that you can really do that geo-targeting to really hone in on your customers.
Yeah, and if there isn't a group, start one, because then you have absolute access to everything.
Yeah. All right.
So that's also how you get data without being creepy, right? We talk about this all the time. Don't be creepy, don't be spammy. So, most people, when they're trying to figure out how their audience is, they're using tools, hoping it's their friends. And I say hoping because we've all been there with, we started an entrepreneur thing and our friends and family are like, oh, yeah, have fun with that. You're going to give me a discount, right? Instead of actually buying in. But, Google Analytics, social media insights, even YouTube will tell you where your viewers are from. And especially if you're going live, if you're noticing that a lot of people in one area are watching your lives, you can really, really capitalize on that in the sense of being like, hey, you know what? There's a park near there. Let me do a live from that location and maybe like send an invite to anybody that wants to come meet and talk about my product or whatever afterwards. Now that can, of course, be nerve-wracking, and I would say always make sure that someone knows where you are, who loves you and cares for you, and maybe even is there with you, just in case, because the world is crazy. But it's a great way to get that information.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about, like, maybe you create or you have like an affiliate program where you build something where you're promoting the local restaurants. You're the foodie, you're the foodie guy. And so you start targeting that local area in terms of all the restaurants and the things that you enjoy and stuff like that. And then that's pulling the people in your local area towards maybe you have a cooking show, right? Or maybe you sell God, who knows? But there's just like all sorts of different things. Whether maybe it's beauty products, and now you're giving shout outs to the local community who deals with beauty things, and then you're also pulling them into your own product. These are simple little ways that you can do it, and you're reaching out to the people who are local, and they're more willing to support someone local versus someone who's, just some person on the internet, right? And you can pay to do this as well. You can there's geotargeting software and ad platforms that have location filters, so you can utilize those as well if you're at that point. And then cookies, right? Privacy matters. So you don't want to be the marketer that comes off as Big Brother, where you're like, creepy. How did you know that? How did I said this and now I'm getting nothing but ads for this. All right. You want to make sure that you're respecting the line between targeting people who are in your area, getting your information out to them, and being that creepy stalker dude, because nobody likes that.
Yeah. And then you need to, I don't like that either, no. Then you need to create your hyper-localized offer, right? A caveat on that, actually, I'm very careful when I comment on certain people's stuff, if I'm a big fan of theirs, not to come off creepy. But create your hyper-localized offer, right? So if you are focusing on, let's just use my hometown. Like, if I was always out of Riverton, Wyoming, right? I probably wouldn't go in there talking about, I don't know, big apartment living, right? Because, there's apartments there, but it's not, huge structures like it is here, or even condos. I don't even think they have condos there. So, I wouldn't go in as a condo representative, trying to sell condos to anybody, because that's not going to affect them, right? But, ranch and feed is big out there. So, you don't have to be in whatever that niche is, but you should make sure that you're talking at their level, not, way, way out. So, tailor the product recommendations, right? So if it's Minnesota in winter, maybe don't try to sell flip-flops. Maybe focus on the snow boots.
And that's where we're saying, the opportunities for affiliates are huge in that way. You don't have to necessarily have a local brand, but something that meets the local needs. Right. And then you can target that way, which is, that's super helpful. Like you say, ranch and feed. Maybe you are an affiliate for ranch and feed, and so therefore make sure you're targeting the right audience in your local area. They can come to you, and they're going to see you much more trustworthy than, just some Joe Blow on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And, be careful with the local slang. I mean, it's one thing to talk local, especially if you're somewhere where the dialect is almost completely different, like Hawaii. I will say Hawaiian locals talk a lot different than transplants. But, if you're forcing it, or it's just awkward, or you're not really sure how to pronounce it, use that local slang sparingly. Otherwise, you're going to come across as a poser. And again, you're going to lose trust and credibility.
The same goes if you're doing out of country, right? Don't pretend you're Canadian, because we know when you say sorry if you're Canadian or not, because you say it different if you're American. And even then, if you're in Canada and you're an affiliate within Canada, people are going to know if you're from the East Coast, or if you're from Central, or if you're from West Coast, simply by the dialect and the accent that you have. Because we've got accents in Canada too that aren't just all, don't you know, eh? So
I love it.
And I said, partner with a local business, right? That will boost your credibility instantly. So if you're selling, say, go back to feed or something like that, partner with your local business, and maybe you can help them get product, or they can ship, and that'll get you some credibility that you didn't necessarily have. Or maybe it's your local nail salon, right? You're selling nail products or whatever like that, or beauty products. Partner with them, get some of that credibility, and share it between the two of you.
Yeah, you see it a lot with essential oils or supplements and chiropractor. practice or massage practice, right? Because those kind of go hand in hand. They're both in the more holistic wellness space. And it's a great way for the essential oil representative to get way more eyes on it. And it's a great way for the, doctor, the chiropractor, or the masseuse to get a little bit extra kickback from that, and also decorate their front office maybe a little bit more. And if it's an essential oil thing, their office is gonna smell good too. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. I see that a lot with actually like different kinds of holistic practitioners, like hypnotherapy and massage and those kinds of things, where they might actually be in a building together, right? And so you can work with that. You have different options with all of them, right? So,
yeah.
So
how do you? Yeah, exactly. Let's get tactical, guys. And no, I don't mean let's go to C2 and then shoot off some rounds. What I do mean is most major affiliate programs let you set your geo rules, right? They don't really care, as long as you're not breaking any laws, they don't really care how you're marketing it. So, walk through, select your region, adjust your bids, your offers, whatever it is. And that's kind of how you really niche it down, right? And this is especially handy within social media if you're using content creation to go ahead and boost your products. Again, you can add locations on most everything. I think TikTok, actually, I've turned it off, but has a new thing where it shows you like on a map where people are active, which is kind of disturbing.
It was Instagram Maps. Yeah, Instagram Maps. And I'm like, NARP. Because that's a lot like remember Foursquare, where it was like telling you exactly where everybody was. And it's like, please don't do that. You want to do a general area. I'm in Philadelphia. Not, I'm right here in Philadelphia. No.
Yep. But again, if your offer is kind of on the high end and maybe with the area that you're in that you're targeting is a little lower income, that might be the information you need to maybe shift from the high ticket stuff into some of the lower ticket stuff. Things like that. Like this is where that information really comes in handy.
Yeah. If you want to go more advanced, then you're going to do some IP-based targeting. It's pretty solid, but it's not perfect, right? I mean, people use IP spoofers and stuff like that. So it's not exactly perfect, but it does help. Do that versus GPS-based targeting, which is, way too accurate. And we don't want to be that stalker. Remember, we're not being stalkers. We're looking for general areas to help us build our business and to connect with people. We are not trying to creepily stalk them. We don't need the GPS tracking.
Yeah. When I was in real estate, we had a geofencing program that was supposed to basically go through people's data and based on trends, figure out okay, this person's owned their house long enough, they might be thinking about selling. But I found the emails and the phone numbers were almost always wrong. And so I was just calling people who had no idea who I was. And so I stopped doing that, which is probably one of the real reasons I'm no longer in real estate, to be honest. But we've talked about before, we are not popping your DM people. We are not cold call people. That is just not our style. So be aware that sometimes the data might be wrong. So geofencing errors can block who you want if you're putting in the wrong information. And if you're going far too narrow, then that's going to be a pitfall in and of itself, because now your projected audience of, let's say, 1,000 is really 20.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We want to narrow down. We don't want to exclude, right? We're trying to include the people in our local area, but that local area doesn't have to be 3 blocks. Right? It can be your community or the surrounding communities within your community, the whole county versus just that town. And I think it's important to, just like when you're niching down for a product, and you're narrowing it down, again, you don't want to get too hyper specific most of the time, unless your audience is a very financially well off, right? Where they have a lot of disposable income, but generally most of us are not in that, most of us are not in that space. So yes, I was watching with my husband the other night, some guy who builds trucks, very custom trucks. And they had moved down to Florida from wherever, I can't even remember where they were. Jersey. And then they moved down to Florida and they started building these custom trucks. Now these trucks are hyper specific and they're super expensive. So it's very clear who his target market is. Now they make about 60 trucks a year, but their market is very small and very rich. And I said, that is like a super niche thing that he's done. And it's very specific. It's obvious who he's targeting. My husband's looking at me. He's like, marketing again. It's really obvious, and they're doing a great job of it. They have some excellent, marketing that they're doing, but yeah, it's very clear that they have niched right down and they're going straight up for who they're choosing, right? Which you can do that too, but if your local area doesn't support it, maybe that's not your people's.
Yeah, we have the Ferrari of ice bath manufacturers here in Phoenix, right? We have Morosco, and theirs makes ice, and they're all handmade, and they're a fantastic product. And unfortunately, they're out of the price range for a lot of typical, especially when you got drop shippers selling the plunge for $1,000 or $2,000. So yeah, same kind of thing. It's still people who want the benefits and want the challenge and want the actual cold, but there's a certain price tag that comes with that. So
yeah, and so you got to be very sure you're marketing to the right section for whatever it is that you're selling. And also, if you've decided that you want to be in a specific area and you're going to geo-target that, make sure that you know what that financial situation is. And that's easy enough to find out. You can look at your area. That information is online, and you can see how much of, like, they might be an affluent neighborhood, but they're also credit max to the nth degree. So you can see that as well. It'll show you how much actual disposable income they have, not just, it looks like they got lots of money, but really they're in debt up to their eyeballs and beyond. So
yeah, I learned that when I lived in Texas. I was living in a ritzy town, and everyone who came in was like cutting coupons like crazy, and I was like, oh, you're paper rich, you're not actually rich. I got you now.
Yeah, it's all window dressing. Yeah, no, I lived in an area like that because I felt less than, because I just moved there and I was like, oh my God, everybody's got so much more than me, and I feel bad for my kids because they can't do all the things. And then I started looking at the information. I was like, yeah, they're poor like me, it don't matter. They look like they're not, but they are.
And of course, when we talk about data, we can't not talk about measuring your success with tracking. So we love our metrics, we really do, right? So your click-through rate, or your CTR, your conversions, which of course is what's going to pay the bills, but specifically your geo-specific conversions, right? Because maybe you're still marketing. Maybe you're doing both, right? Maybe you're running Google or ads to all of the US, but you're also running hyper-focused ads to Cadillac, Michigan. And, maybe Cadillac's conversion rate is 50%, but the whole US's is 10%. Those are important metrics to understand, because then you can look at Cadillac itself, find other areas in the US that match that same demographics, same, income, all that kind of stuff, and maybe start hyper targeting those as well and up your conversion rate without actually upping your ad spend, which is huge. So that kind of data can be really, really beneficial. And then, of course, A/B tests, right? Generic ad versus localized one. So maybe you're running 2 ads to, again, Cadillac, Michigan, but maybe one is just kind of generic and doesn't really talk about what your offer is, whereas the other one is very, very localized. You mention local businesses, or you mention, local issues at the time. Now, these ones obviously are not going to be evergreen ads. These are ones that you're going to have to tweak as concerns within the community change. But think of it in terms of election ads, right? Like, every election ad is different because they're targeting it to either slandering their opponent, which I freaking hate, or talking about, what's actually going on in their community right now. If they're worth anything, they're talking about how they plan to solve it. And they're also talking about what they've done in the past, right? So that is a hyper-targeted ad. So think of it in terms like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll see it also with like solar power ads for solar or energy ones, where they'll touch very strongly on the current costs for energy in your specific area and how whatever they're trying to sell you will benefit you specifically. So that's another way where you can target those ads by utilizing the information that's available within that local area. And I like what you said earlier also about, if it really hits in one target community area, look for other communities that match that whole demographic, maybe their industry or, the income levels or the housing type or the education type, all of those things, depending on what it is, and look for other communities or areas within your broader scope and include those. You can create those ads and that will reach out to those people. So your geo-targeting doesn't have to necessarily be just my local area, but it is very specific to this type of person in these type of areas. And then you can call those communities out by name, or those areas or counties or whatever out by name, and really start to, connect with them specifically. And I think that that's an excellent idea.
Sometimes I have good ones.
You're smart. You're so smart. And like we said, and then that's why we say, like, when you find a winner, you're going to scale it, right? You're going to scale it to other communities that match, other areas that match, and you've already got the groundwork, right? So you've already laid the groundwork, you found out what works, and now you can just apply that to other areas in that same geo type situation, right? So, whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah. And none of this is going to be instant, right? Especially when we start talking about ads and stuff, right? Like, if your click-through rate is really good, but you're not getting conversions, that means that your ad's doing its job. Maybe your website or your funnel isn't. And that's where, maybe leave your ad alone, but maybe tweak your funnel or tweak your website a little bit. If your click rate is really good once they've clicked on, but your click-through rate is kind of crap, well, look at your ad. What about your ad is off? And again, change one or two things at a time with ads. Don't change everything. So it's going to be a process of finding out the exact copy that works to get the click-through rate, to get the conversions and all that kind of stuff, even before you start with the geo-targeting theme. So be aware of all these things. Like, it's a learning curve. It's going to be a learning curve. Unless you have thousands of dollars to pay to an already experienced marketing team, it's going to be a lot of trial and error. But that's why you should, again, start your budget small. And then once it's working, your conversions are up, your click-through rate's good, all that, that's when you start adding more money. That's when you're really able to scale and then really tweak the geo-tracking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we understand that the majority of the people that we speak to are going to be solopreneurs. They're going to be starting small. And that's why we want to give you these little step-by-steps to help you along in your process. And it's not just going to be your ads. It's not just going to be your content. It could also be your funnel, right? Sometimes you're sending them to a funnel that's already set up, but if you're creating your own funnels, then that's just another piece of the puzzle that you might have to edit to make it more desirable for the people who are landing there. But all of these things are possible, and you just have to have some patience and persistence, right?
Yes.
There's always going to be that one or two people who just nail it from the outgo and they just take off like lightning. Don't compare yourself to them. Okay? Always compare yourself to where you're at today. Yep. If tomorrow you're doing better, that's awesome. If you find that you have some struggles and you make some adjustments and things get better, that's awesome. And if you're feeling really stuck, reach out. There are mentors out there. There are people out there. You can reach out to us. We're happy to, if we don't have the answers, we can either find them for you or we can help you find somebody who will give you the answers. We are more than happy to do that because we want to see you all succeed.
For sure.
Right? So, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not a gimmick, guys. Geotargeting is a super powerful thing. It's a great way for you to stop wasting money on, again, if you're spending $10 and you're trying to target the whole US versus spending $10 and targeting, 0.007 of the US, your money's going to go farther, right?
Absolutely.
And it's how you build trust, especially if if your ad shows your face and you're going out in the community and you're making videos around the community, it's going to build trust and your audience is going to feel like they can connect with you at a greater level.
Absolutely. So a little challenge for you, pick a tool, create one localized offer this week and just see what happens. You'd be surprised at how quickly it might actually have some good benefit for you, because you're connecting with the community that you already are in, right? So next week, since we are about that time of year, we're going to get into it. Seasonal and holiday affiliate campaigns, how to plan and execute for maximum impact. Because if you're not already planning your Christmas campaign, you're already behind. Yep. That's all next week. So for us this week, we're done. Bye. If you found this helpful, please drop a comment, share, and hit that subscribe button. Your feedback is super helpful in growing this channel.
And of course, if you have any questions or if there's any specific thing that you would like us to talk about, drop that in the comments too. Happy Friday!
Happy Friday, everyone!